Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to beat the 6-34 boss fight against Heathcliff ? That's his name. Now, okay, before I show you the replay of the fight, I'm just going to spend like 2 minutes talking about team building and composition and theory, and then I'm going to show you the full 10-minute replay of the battle in the boss fight, and I'll show you how to beat him. Alright, so with the team building, there's a couple of things you want to note. The first is you want a tanky Heathcliff. So I actually used not Sunshower, I used Pequod Heathcliff. Mine is only level 1, so I borrowed someone else's who was level 45. But Pequod Heathcliff is an excellent unit because he is not blunt fatal, which is what I wanted to show. And it's not pictured here, but he only has 1 stagger bar. Now you don't have to use Pequod Heathcliff, but you want a Heathcliff who is tanky. So like here's an example of a bad one. N-Corp Heathcliff takes double damage from blunt, and all of the boss's attacks are blunt, so we want to avoid that. Here's another bad one. Berkamo Heathcliff takes double damage from blunt, so we really want to avoid that. Full Stop Heathcliff takes double damage from blunt, but he's a super broken unit, so he's probably still worth using anyway. Now here's a great one. Multicrack Heathcliff is amazing for this because he only takes half damage from blunt and he's very tanky. I just didn't use mine because mine's level 50 and none of my friends had a level 45 multicrack up for borrow. 7 Association Blunt Fatal. So that is the problem with Heathcliff IDs, is a lot of them are blunt fatal. But you can consider using Sunshower, you can consider using Pequod, you could consider using even the default, although I wouldn't really recommend that, or Multicrack Heathcliff, or even Wild Hunt. Wild Hunt's double blunt fatal, but Wild Hunt is also just an amazing ID, so he's a pretty good choice. But I ended up opting for Pequod. So that's just the short recap on Heathcliff. Get someone who's really tanky. Now regarding the rest of the team composition, this is the team I used. I picked these units because they can generate resources for Fluid Sac, although I never ended up using it, because you want to have an ego in your team that can heal. So Fluid Sac can heal. If you run a Poise team, you could use Thoracolgia to heal. If you run a team that generates a lot of Sloth, like Rupture, you could use Pursuance to heal. Roja also has a Pursuance ego that can heal. She has Indicant's Trial. If you're running a burn team, you could use Indicant's Trial to heal. There's just a bunch of options. Heathcliff himself can heal himself. I didn't use any of these egos because I'm trying to do as new player friendly as possible. But AEDD has a great healing passive. You could do something like, oh, what else can heal? I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, My Form Empties. I don't know how to pronounce its Buddhist name. My Form Empties can heal Heathcliff. That's just amazing. LCB Gregor has a healing passive, which is good. So we'll be using that at the start of the combat phase, heal someone. So that's the second part of team building. First part was get a tanky Heathcliff. Second part is try to get at least 1 healing ego in your team. Now the third part of team building is, since I did this with a very weak team, I relied a lot on Chains of Other, Merceau's ego, and mine's actually up tie 4, although yours doesn't have to be, because it inflicts attack power down next turn on the enemies. So I made sure to bring units that can generate Sloth, Loom, and Envy, because I wanted to use Chains of Others a lot. So those are the 3 things about team building. And then I just brought Ishmael, because, she's a good unit. I brought Lobcorp Faust, because she's great. And then I brought the middle Merceau. I tried making a couple different bad units work. I tried a bunch of different team compositions, but like G-Corp Otis was just terrible for it. Shi Association Don Quixote was just terrible for it. Disei Yisung was just terrible. The units just don't clash high enough. But without any further ado, let's get into the replay, and I'll walk you through how to beat the fight now. Okay. Get back to here. Hit play. So first thing you'll note is I only deploy 4 units. I've been trying this for a couple hours, so I take off Don Quixote because I got so frustrated with her, and that ended up being the key. So I give slot 1 to Faust, slot 2 to Heathcliff, or I do it the other way around. Slot 1 to Heathcliff, slot 2 to Faust, because now they're going to get an extra turn over the next 2 turns to compensate for the fact that I am only running 4 units. And that ended up being the final piece of the puzzle I needed, because Heathcliff Now to get into the theory of the fight, and here you'll just see I'm just setting up some clashes to build sanity where I can. Heathcliff cannot be disabled because the... Oh man, it's annoying because the boss's name is Heathcliff. We're just going to call the boss, but our Heathcliff cannot be disabled because the boss uses fixed attacks that we cannot clash or redirect with any other sinners. So our Heathcliff needs to be available and ready to clash those to stop himself from dying. So by giving him 2 slots, we're increasing his availability to clash and defend himself and increasing his opportunities to build sanity. Additionally, the boss loses sanity when Heathcliff wins a clash against the boss. So having 2 turns for Heathcliff is great. Now the problem is, the boss only targets Heathcliff, so by having 2 turns for Heathcliff, you might, what's the word? You increase your risk of being disabled because you're taking more clashes. So that's where these extra safety valves come in, with chains of others from Morceau, and having a healing ego if possible ready to go. I actually don't use any healing this entire fight, because I just didn't. But you want those guys ready to go. Alright, so let's pause the video here for a second. So my Heathcliff has been disabled, which is sort of a disaster. But it's okay because it's very early in the fight. I can redirect with other people because my safety valve is there. I applied chains of others to him, so his speed went down to 1. And now when my Heathcliff gets back in the fight next turn, Heathcliff is going to be ready to go because he won't be staggerable again, because Pequod Heathcliff only has 1 staggerable. But even if you used another Heathcliff ID, the same sort of concept would apply, because their second stagger bar would be a lot lower down usually. So you're just kind of, you're safe now because he can't get disabled again. Unless you corrode, but I don't even have ego equipped on it because I was trying to be as player friendly as possible. That's that. But here we go. Early part of the fight, not a lot to say, just building up sanity and ego resources for chains of others. Now here's kind of where we have to start thinking, because a lot of the clashes are starting to look pretty ugly. He powered up because of his red bubble, which gave him offense level when he was hit, and my chains of others wore off, and I don't have the sloth resources to use it again. But this team generates a lot of resources for body sack. You definitely want a team that can generate the resources for body sack. So I'm still able to do okay because I just deflect with that. There we go. I prioritize clashing the Gloom skills and the Wrath skills that the boss uses because those do more damage than his purple skills. His purple skills are weak. Well, they're not weak, they actually do quite a bit of damage, but they're weaker than the red. And there we go. I get pretty lucky here with Ishmael. It's nice. I guess after you do the run enough times. And the skills that I couldn't clash, I just evaded. So bringing an ID with an evade is nice. And here we go. Trying to build up sanity on Heathcliff, although it's very, very hard to do so. So I'm having him clash the weak purple skills. That skill's too tough, I can't clash it. So what do? I think about it for a second, and I just decide to do nothing about it. So Ishmael is just going to deflect it with her counter and take the hit to the face. But that's why we have these safety valves. It's all for protecting Heathcliff. So I brought Ishmael because she's a She Association unit, so she doesn't care if she takes damage. So, anything to keep Heathcliff alive. Now I get lucky here and stagger the boss, although I guess it was pretty lucky, it just kind of happened. But so she's not going to end up needing to do that, but I was ready to. Generating some bloom resources. And then we'll talk about phase 2 when we get there, but phase 2 doesn't happen until he's at 905 HP. Now here I have a choice, and I have to think about it, and I kind of make a mistake here, but I'll explain what I do. So you'll see that I skip this turn. I queue up all defense skills, and I skip this turn. It's because he has the red bubble on him, and the red bubble means that every time you hit him, he'll gain 1 offense level up next turn, but 1 defense level down. So in order to keep his clash power low, I skip this turn to avoid, giving him red bubble procs when I don't have to. Now in hindsight, this is kind of a mistake, because you can see there Morceau has a yellow skill. I should have used his yellow skill so I could get another yellow ego resource. But I didn't think of it. But even still, it's not the worst mistake ever. So now he's in his blue bubble, his gloom bubble, which means we lose 3 sanity every time we hit him, which kind of sucks, but there's not a ton we can do about it. I try to avoid hitting him an unnecessary amount of times when I can, but you sort of just have to. So this turn, I just opt to ignore the gloom bubble and just set up some clashes. There we go. Just get through this turn. Skip it a bit. Save us some time. Cool. Another turn with the gloom bubble, same deal. I have enough resources for chains of others, so I decided to throw that on. And then thankfully I have enough for body sack because we need to be deflecting those fixed skills. Here, I'll pause for a sec. See how it says target fixed? That means only Heathcliff can parry those, which is super annoying. Especially because this skill is super dangerous. And this is where the fight gets really risky. So if you have egos for Heathcliff, like, you know, AEDD, or maybe My Form Empties, or just any kind of ego that's not just body sack, so you can increase his options, that's really good. But here, unfortunately, I just kind of have to get lucky. But I do have chains of others coming up, so that means next turn things will be a lot more smooth and consistent, because well, they'll have -4 attack power down. I do set up that other neutral clash with Heathcliff, just sort of in the hopes that I can build more sanity first. But and then with Ishmael and Lobcorp Remnant Faust, I just skip their turns, so that way they don't lose sanity hitting the boss, because I don't want to hit him while he has his gloom bubble up. This was kind of funny. I won the clash against his big skill, and I lost it against his weakest skill. That's just how this is sometimes. Yeah, I actually lose the Chains of Others, which is a total disaster. I actually thought I might lose the fight right here, because I spent ego resources on chains and I didn't get it. So what I end up deciding to do is, because things are looking pretty dire, is I just have to try to get him staggered before that skill goes off, because otherwise I'm in for a lot of pain. So I just queue up as many attacks as I can, I queue up some ways for Heathcliff to build sanity, and I just go for it. Which is an option you can do too. It's not the best option, but if there's really a skill you can't deal with, just go for a stagger. There we go. And we get it, thank God. Keeps us in the game. Alright, so now we finished his first phase, so we get into phase 2. Well, we get into phase 2 in a moment. Because he falls... I'll pause it after this. Okay, so now I have a decision to make. So it doesn't tell you this, but his next phase starts, or maybe it does, and I just don't remember, but his next phase starts at 905 HP. Unfortunately, his hit points cannot fall below 905 before the phase. The damage will just stop counting. So I don't need to use any of my big nuke skills. I just can use all of my weak skills to generate the resources I want and not worry about doing damage to him, because I'm going to do 60 damage no matter what. Now the other thing to note that's a bit funky is not Heathcliff's I should say, the boss's statuses will reset in phase 2. So if you apply chains to others of him, and then he falls to 905 HP in the same turn, you will have wasted chains of others because it will wear off at the start of the next thing. I unfortunately made that mistake on a prior run, and I had to reset. So I'm just using my weakest skills, I'm just generating some resources, and then I'm going to get ready for the next turn. Now, you may be wondering, why did I use Ishmael's skill 2 instead of her skill 1? It's because I needed the Lust. The Lust resources are needed for Body Sack, they're needed for Fluid Sack. So, even though I do 0 damage, it was worth getting an extra Lust resource. Also, if I rewind it for a sec, the reason why my Heathcliff, if we see here, at the end, he's losing 10 sanity from the story status, you know that. But the reason why he's gaining 10 is because I have LCB Yisang on the bench, who when a unit loses sanity from anything other than like using an ego, LCB Song will heal them for 10 sanity. If you have enough sloth for his passive to activate. Now I do want to say this was kind of bullshit. I wish this hadn't happened because I don't. This is ridiculously lucky. I had very low chance and I passed it. Yeah, I kind of freaked out when that happened. It's so rare. But winning it is very good because Heathcliff gets way stronger. But you don't have to win it. That's why I kind of wish I hadn't won it because I don't want to show like that's necessary. And okay. Last thing to note is the Envy bubble he has now makes you take 2 bleed potency and 2 bleed count on hit. This is super dangerous and super bad. It's really dangerous. So you need to be super cautious about who hits Heathcliff while he has his purple bubble up. The only saving grace is that he takes double purple damage when it's up, thank God. So this team generates a lot of purple resources, which is good because then I can dump those attacks on him and deal a lot of enemy damage. However, he's pretty far away from his stagger bar, so I was sort of worried about just going all in on envy attacks this turn, and I decided to play more cautiously, and I decided to use Faust to generate an extra lust resource and an extra gloom resource, so I could use Fluid Sac next turn if I needed to. Yeah, you can see me pondering in the replay. I'm like, how am I going to get through this? And I decide to have Heathcliff skip one of his attacks so that way he gets less bleed put on him. Because again, we need to keep Heathcliff alive. This is all about creating safety valves to protect him. There we go. We can see all that damage we're doing because he's weak to envy damage. It doesn't show up as fatal when we hit him, but that's why the envy skills are doing so much damage. You can see the bleed really stacking up on Faust. Very annoying, super annoying. So coming in with chains. Down. And Ishmael coming in just to happens. Now I have a conundrum here, and you'll see me make a greedy decision. I realize I have envy skills all across the board, and a quirk of Pequod Heathcliff is that he gets stronger with envy resonance. You can see me double checking his skills because I'm like, wait, what does he do again? And so I decide actually to turbo greed, even though Heathcliff has his the boss has his defensive shield up, and I decide just to dump damage on the boss. So I switch to his skill 3 Sever Not, and I just decided to go for the 6 envy resonance. Honestly, it would have been a better idea to use Faust's Fluid Sac here and not greed like this, but sometimes you just can't help yourself. Sometimes you just can't help yourself. I think about it for a bit. I double check his health bar, and I decide, yeah, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna go for the 6 envy. Sometimes you just have those opportunities pop up, and you just have to take them. Especially since the guy is double weak to envy damage right now. Weirdly enough, the envy shield actually makes him weaker to envy damage. So color matching game. Bonus attack harpoon. And now for the huge skill, Sever Not is massive because I have 6 envy resonance. And I knew this fight was over at this point. That was just way too much damage. It's good. So there you go. Finish the fight with no healing, just pure clashing and chains of others, and just keeping Heathcliff alive and finding a Heathcliff ID that's a bit tanky. And we get the finishing blow with Fluid Sac. Now I'll stop the replay here so you guys don't see the story cutscene at the end. But yeah. Now the final thing I'll say before I end this video is you may be wondering, okay, that was cool, you know, I saw that. But tell me, what are some teams I can actually just use to beat this and not just a random collection of units that generate the resources I need for chains of others? Because that's basically what this is. It's just a random collection of units that generate the right sin resources. So if you want to do a more specific team, Poise is going to be great because you can get all the healing from Thoracalcia, so you could run a Poise team and then just throw in like full stop Heathcliff. Burn is going to be great because of the Indicant's Trial. Now I say great loosely because Heathcliff doesn't have any burn IDs, so it's only going to be a 5-person burn team, but burn is fine with 5 people. Charge is going to be really high tier because Multicrack Heathcliff is super strong for this fight because he resists blunt damage. So any charge team is going to be good. Just don't greed with telephone poles overclock that inflicts rupture on you because the boss also inflicts rupture. So you really don't want to get the extra rupture put on you. That sucks. So just don't greed. And then as for other teams, I mean, Rupture is going to be okay. 7 Association Heathcliff is pretty bad for this, though. Tremor is going to be okay if you have Oofy Heathcliff. I don't have him, so I wasn't going to try it, but I'm sure Tremor would be alright. And then Bleed is the most meta team in the game right now, and conveniently enough, Pequod Heathcliff is a Bleed unit. So yeah, you could run a Bleed team and you would be totally fine. Now, the king of the teams is sinking because the boss has a sanity bar, which not every boss does. And so sinking is amazing because you can just lower him to negative 45 sanity every turn and just destroy him. So you could run like Wild Hunt Heathcliff, you could run Spice Brush Yisung, or you could use Solemn Lament. There's so many good sinking options, so I'm not even going to list them all. Sinking's just an amazing team right now. So those are probably the two best, is sinking and charge, because charge has multi-crack and sinking is going to exploit his sanity mechanic. But yeah, I managed to beat it with just a team of units that generate resources for chains. I hope this video helped you. It's a bit longer than my normal videos, but this is just kind of a fight that has a lot going on. So if you have any questions or you need advice, just leave a comment in the YouTube section and I'll try to get a reply out. Have a good day, manager, and I'll see you around.